Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are getting dangerously close to the end of The Rape of Lucrece, which is a very long poem that deals with sexual violence towards women and suicidal ideation and war and violence and all sorts of things like that. So if any of that is a trigger for you, please tune out. But we are sort of past a lot of that. We're dealing with the repercussions of it. So if you want to hear today's stanzas, we're looking at stanzas 253 to 256. Lucrece was able to, with great difficulty, she was able to name her rapist, and then she promptly killed herself. She stabbed herself in the chest, and her husband fell on her to mourn her passing. Brutus pulled out the knife, which made blood spurt everywhere and sort of surrounded her in blood. And there was some talk in the stanzas yesterday and the day before that to this day, pure blood is red, and blood that has been tainted looks darker, blacker, and that all blood has this sort of watery sheen to it to symbolize the tears that are shed when somebody dies. But then in the process of mourning, her father starts to mourn, and we spent some time in the stanzas with him yesterday talking about the fact that he's not supposed to outlive his daughter. You know, there isn't a word for a parent who has lost a child, and he saw himself in her growing up and figured that she would carry on the line, but now that she's gone, he doesn't quite know who he is anymore. And stanza 253 picks up with him still saying, "O time, cease thou thy course and last no longer, if they surcease to be that should survive. Shall rotten death make conquest of the stronger and leave the faltering feeble souls alive? The old bees die, the young possess their hive. Then live, sweet Lucrece, live again and see thy father die, and not thy father thee." By this starts Collatine as from a dream, and bids Lucretius give his sorrow place. And then, in key-cold Lucretia's bleeding stream, he falls, and bathes the pale fear in his face, and counterfeits to die with her a space, till manly shame bids him possess his breath, and live to be revenged on her death. The deep vexation of his inward soul hath served a dumb arrest upon his tongue, who, mad that sorrow should use his control, or keep him from heart-easing words so long, begins to talk, but through his lips do throng weak words, so thick come in his poor heart's aid that no man could distinguish what he said. Yet sometime Tarquin was pronounced plain, but through his teeth, as if the name he tore, this windy tempest, till it blow up rain, held back his sorrow's tide to make it more. At last it rains, and busy winds give o'er. Then son and father weep with equal strife. Who should weep most, for daughter or for wife? So the first of these stanzas is Lucretia's father, Lucretius, still mourning for her and saying, continuing on what he had been saying before, the parent shouldn't outlive the child should outlive the parent. You know, he wants her to come back so that he can be the one to die first. And him saying that sort of snaps Collatine out of his state of shock, and he then falls by Lucretia's side and sort of gets covered in her blood and pretends like he's going to die with her for a second, until he's like, wait a second, no, I need to get revenge on somebody for having done this. But he can't quite, the third stanza deals with the fact that he can't quite express in words what it is that he needs to say. He has all of these words that want to get out, but they're not quite coming correctly, and or they're coming so fast that nobody can understand what he says. But somebody does, he does very clearly say Tarquin, so people sort of get the impression that now is the time to go and get revenge on Tarquin for this having been done, and with sort of a pseudo plan in place, just that they need to do this. Both Collatine and Lucretius weep together, one mourning his wife and one mourning his daughter, and both of them sort of wondering who gets to cry harder, who gets to mourn more for having lost for having lost Lucretia. So we're not quite done with this yet. There is a little bit further to go and some more grief to deal with, but we will get into that in tomorrow's stanzas. So I will see you then. Mwah.